This is lesson 7, informal proof and converse of Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem uses the given lengths of the right triangles to find unknown lengths in a right triangle. The equation is as follows. And it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A and B stand for the legs of the right triangle. C stands for the longest side or the hypotenuse. So now, this would be A and B, and they can be interchangeable, but C can never be. And the way to know what C always is, or the hypotenuse, is directly across from your right angle. Okay? So the proof of your right triangle is to know that you have a perfect square here. So for example, we have 9 here, and excuse me, and I have 16 here. And here we have 25. The area of each of these. So as we can see from the proof of the square of the length of the hypotenuse of the right triangle is equal to the sum of the square of the two legs. And the way that we know that is we have 9 plus 16, and that equals 25. So when I add these two together, I have 25 equals 25. So for the given triangle, you can write the equation a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So the reminders that we have is the Pythagorean theorem, and make sure that you know this. The Pythagorean theorem can only be used for right triangles. The hypotenuse of a right triangle is always the longest side, or the side directly opposite the right angle, as I showed you above. So now, the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. If the sum of the squares of the lengths of the two legs of the triangle is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse, then the triangle is a right triangle. So for example, if a squared plus b squared does equal c squared, then the triangle is a right triangle. In other words, you're proving it, okay? If the sides are, if one side equals the other, it is a right triangle. If one side does not equal the other, it's not a right triangle. So here we are going to find that out. So here we go. So in other words, does a triangle, just because it's a triangle doesn't mean it's a right triangle. So it says, does triangle with the sides 8C, 15C, and 17 cm form a right triangle? Well, we've got to find that out. Notice 17 is the highest, therefore it should be the hypotenuse, or C. So for this one, what we are going to do is we are going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we need to find out if it's a right triangle. So here we are going to say, so we are going to say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we are going to use 8 squared plus 15 squared, and we need to know if that equals 17 squared. So 8 squared is 64, plus 15 squared is 225, and we need to know if that equals 289. And remember, please use your calculators, ladies and gentlemen. So if I add these two together, I have 289, and that does equal 289. Therefore, yes, this forms a right triangle. Okay. In example 2, it says, is the triangle with legs 9 inches, 9 inches, and the hypotenuse of the square root of 175 a right triangle? Show your work and answer in a complete sentence. Well, we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we have 9 squared plus 9 squared equals the square root of 175. Well, we have 81. Oh, sorry, we have to square that. So we have 81 plus 81. And if you put in your calculators the square root of 175 squared, it is 175. And basically what you're doing is you are taking off the square root. So 81 plus 81 is 162. And that does not equal 175. Therefore, no. 9 inches, 9 inches, and the square root of 175 do not form a right triangle. Next, let's try it on your own. It says Daniel had 2 pieces of wire. He bent each piece of wire onto the shape of a triangle. Determine which triangle is a right triangle. Well, okay. The first one we have. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we have 18 squared plus 26 squared equals 36 squared. So I have 324 plus 676. And does that equal 1,296? Well, we have 1,000. Does that equal 1,296? And I put no automatically because we know it does not. So triangle B, we're hoping that that's the one. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I have 15 squared plus 20 squared. And does it equal 25 squared? Well, I have 225 plus 400. And does that equal 625? Here I have 625. And does that equal 625? And the answer is yes. So now it says, now that we know what the Pythagorean theorem is, let's practice using it to find the length of the hypotenuse of a right triangle. Determine the length of the hypotenuse of the right triangle. Well, here's what we need to do. We have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we are going to substitute in a and b. And again, a and b can be interchanged. So I don't care what you pick for a and what you pick for b, but pick them. So we have a, b, and c. I'm going to pick a as 6, b as 8, and c as c. So we're going to substitute in. So we have 6 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. So 6 squared is 36, plus 8 squared is 64, equals c squared. Here we have 100 equals c squared. I'm going to take the square root of both to find out what c is. C equals 10. Our next question says, what is the length of the unknown side of the right triangle, shown below? Show your work and answer in a complete sentence. Provide an exact answer, and I'm going to show you what that means, an exact answer and an approximate answer, rounded to the nearest tenth. So we're actually going to give two answers here, okay? So here we have A is going to equal 2, B is going to equal 6, C is going to equal C. So I have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I'm going to substitute them in. I have 2 squared plus 6 squared equals C squared. So I have 4 plus 36 equals C squared. So I have 40 equals C squared. So the square root of 40 equals, so I have C equals. Now here I can break this down to let me redo that. To 4 times 10, or 2 square root of 10 equals C. This is an exact answer. Now, for an approximate answer, you take the square root of 40 and you put that in your calculators, and that will give you 6.32455.532. And then according to our question, it wants us to round it to the 10th spot. So our approximate answer is going to be 6.3 millimeters. So next in closure, it says, label the sides of the right triangle with leg, leg, and hypotenuse. So this would be our leg here, our leg here, and our hypotenuse here. And then it says, determine the length of C in the triangle shown. Provide an exact answer and an approximate answer, rounded to the 10th place. So here I have A equals 3, B equals 7, and C equals C. So I have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So I have 3 squared plus 7 squared equals C squared. So I have 9 plus 49 equals C squared. So I have 58 equals C squared. Take the square root of both. So here my exact answer my approximate is that. And that ends our lesson for today.